The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a marvel of crystalline architecture that had stood for 3,000 years. Today, it bore witness to something unprecedented. Hazel Kaya stood before the assembled representatives of 47 species, her posture relaxed but her dark eyes sharp. She was humanity's youngest ambassador, selected not for her diplomacy but for her ability to translate human nature into terms the galaxy could understand. Beside her, partially obscured by the holographic displays, stood Daniel, her security detail, though most council members assumed he was merely decorative. The human delegation wishes to address the Vraxian occupation of the Kepler colonies, Hazel began, her voice steady in the translator matrix that rendered her words into a symphony of languages, scents, and electromagnetic pulses. Council Speaker Tharn, a towering being of interlocking carapace plates, gestured dismissively with 3 of his 7 limbs. The matter has been discussed. The Vraxian Empire has filed proper territorial claims. The human settlement was regrettable but insignificant. Insignificant. Hazel repeated the word as if tasting something bitter. 17,000 colonists, families, children. Compared to the strategic value of the Kepler system, yes, insignificant. Tharn's translator carried no malice, merely cold calculation, the language of a species that had evolved in hive cities where individual life held little weight against collective prosperity. Hazel glanced at Daniel. Something passed between them, wordless and ancient. The other delegates would later struggle to describe it, a shift in atmospheric pressure perhaps, or a frequency their instruments couldn't detect. "Speaker Tharn," Hazel said quietly, "I need you to understand something about humans. We spent 300,000 years as persistence hunters on our homeworld. Do you know what that means?" The Lumerian delegate, a being of pure coherent light, pulsed with curiosity. "Your species chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This is in your historical records, ancient history." "Not that ancient," Daniel said, speaking for the first time. His voice was soft, almost gentle, but it carried through the chamber like a subsonic pulse. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Hazel continued, "When a human decides something is prey, we don't stop. We don't negotiate. We don't accept alternative outcomes. Our bodies are designed for it. We overheat slower than almost any land predator that ever evolved. We can track for days without sleep. We can survive on minimal resources, and most importantly," she paused, letting the silence stretch, "we remember." "Threats are unbecoming of a junior species," Tharn said, though his hindmost limbs had begun the subtle retreat pattern his species used when uncertain. "That wasn't a threat, it was biology." Hazel pulled up a holographic display. "3 weeks ago, you dismissed our petition. You called 17,000 lives insignificant. In that time, do you know what humanity did?" The display shifted, showing fleet movements, resource allocations, manufacturing outputs. The numbers were staggering. "Impossible," whispered the Koth delegate, a methane-breathing entity whose species had never waged war. "Your entire economic output has been redirected. Your colony worlds, your trade networks, your research stations, all of it focused on military production. You would destroy your own prosperity for 17,000 people," Hazel finished. "Yes." Council Speaker Tharn's plates clicked in agitation. "This is economic suicide. The Vraxian Empire has 300 battle groups. You have 70 ships." "Had 70 ships," Daniel corrected. 3 weeks is a long time for a species that industrialized its entire homeworld in 2 centuries. The display updated. Fleet composition, 847 vessels. Another update, 863. Another, 891. The numbers were climbing in real time. "You're showing us fabricated data," Tharn said, but his translator betrayed his uncertainty. "Our manufacturers are operating on what we call a war footing," Hazel explained. Every civilian production facility that can be converted has been. Every resource extraction operation is running triple shifts. Every human in our territory understands what's at stake. The Lumerian delegate pulsed with distress. But why? The economic damage alone will take decades to recover from, for 17,000 individuals in a species of billions. Hazel's expression softened slightly. That's the part you don't understand. It's not about numbers, it's about the principle. Those 17,000 people were ours. They were under our protection. And when something threatens what's ours, we don't calculate cost-benefit ratios. We don't form committees. We don't debate. You hunt, the Koth delegate said, finally understanding. We hunt, Hazel confirmed. Daniel stepped forward, his movement fluid and controlled. Every predator species in the chamber instinctively tracked him. I need to show you something. Council Speaker, with your permission, I'd like to access the historical archives. Tharn, increasingly unsettled, granted access with a gesture. Daniel pulled up footage from Earth, ancient recordings from before humanity had left their cradle world. The council watched as primitive humans, barely tool-using, chased after fleeing prey animals across vast grasslands under a merciless sun. Hours passed in the recording. The prey stumbled, recovered, ran again. The humans followed, their gait steady and implacable. We're not ambush predators, Daniel explained. We're not particularly fast or strong, but we're patient, and we never ever stop. The recording showed the prey animal finally collapsing, its cardiovascular system unable to cope with the prolonged stress. The humans approached almost gently, as if this outcome had always been inevitable. The Vraxian Empire has faster ships, Hazel said. Better weapons, more resources, but they've made a critical error. They've triggered our predator instinct, and now they're prey. This is madness, Tharn said. You'll lose thousands of ships, millions of lives. Probably, Hazel agreed. And we'll build more ships, and if we lose those, we'll build more again. We'll chase the Vraxians across every system they occupy. We'll make every resource they hold cost more to defend than it's worth. We'll be the nightmare that doesn't end, the threat that never stops coming. She leaned forward, and for the first time the council saw something in her eyes that made even the warrior species among them uncomfortable. We'll hunt them until they collapse, just like our ancestors did on the African plains. It's not strategy, Council Speaker. It's instinct. The chamber fell silent. The reality of what humanity represented was finally settling over the assembled delegates. They had welcomed humans as another prey species that had somehow achieved sentience and technology, cautious, diplomatic, concerned with trade and treaties. They had been catastrophically wrong. The vote, Hazel said quietly, we request it be reopened. Tharn's plates clattered in the Vraxian equivalent of nervous laughter. You would go to war over a vote. No, Daniel said. We've already gone to war. The vote determines whether the Council sanctions our response or becomes irrelevant to us. The implications hung in the air like a blade. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for millennia through consensus and negotiation. The idea that a species would simply opt out, would pursue their objectives regardless of Council approval, was foundational heresy. You would break 3,000 years of galactic law. The Lumerian delegate pulsed in distress. We don't want to, Hazel said, and there was genuine regret in her voice. We value the Council, we value peace, but you need to understand, there are things humans will not compromise on. The safety of our people is one of them. Whether you approve or not, the Vraxians will return Kepler or be hunted across the stars. The only question is whether the Council remains relevant to humanity's future. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, Tharn initiated the voting sequence. The tally was unanimous. The Vraxian Empire would be sanctioned and required to withdraw from Kepler within 30 solar days. As Hazel and Daniel left the chamber, the Koth delegate approached them. Through its translation matrix, it asked a single question. Would you really have done it, abandoned the council, gone to war? Hazel looked at the methane breather and her smile was sad. We're already at war. We were at war the moment they killed our people. Everything since then has just been deciding how it ends. Daniel added quietly, "You should be grateful the council voted correctly. Not for our sake, we would have been fine either way. But for the Vraxians, at least now they can surrender and claim they're complying with council mandate. It gives them an out. If they'd had to face us alone in the dark between stars with no witnesses and no arbiters." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. As the two humans departed, Council Speaker Tharn accessed Earth's historical archives, searching for more information about these persistence hunters, these apex predators that had somehow hidden their nature beneath diplomacy and trade agreements. What he found chilled his ichor. Footage of human soldiers fighting for weeks without resupply, of cities that refused to surrender even when defeat was certain, of a species that would endure any hardship, accept any loss, to protect their own. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They had seen humanity's extended hand of peace and assumed it was all humans knew how to offer. The day the Council witnessed humanity's predator trigger without warning would be remembered for millennia, not as the day war came to the stars, but as the day the galaxy learned that Earth's most dangerous export was never its technology or its culture. It was its patience and its memory. And somewhere in the Kepler system, Vraxian commanders were receiving new orders: withdraw immediately. Because the Council had finally understood what the Vraxians were only beginning to learn. When humans start hunting, they don't stop until the prey falls. Not ever,